two passionate people chatting, and I was like, okay, that's crazy. The dude that has the most has like 90 or something like this. I was like, okay. They told me their dream would be him to get the 100. And I say, come on, 100 in a lifetime, that's too easy. We have to make it in a summer, in one season. Yeah, and then they offered to come with me with a car. And I said, a car, what for? Well, yeah, to bring you from one call to the next. And I was like, no, damn, that's not the way I cycle. I cycle with my luggage, with my tent. And so this is how we created the challenge. And then I made the biggest effort I could throughout the entire winter to have them all on the list. And this is where we got into trouble, because in the end it's not 140 paved road, but we ended up with a 200, which is basically 30% more than we thought.
Welcome to the Seek Travel Ride podcast, where we share the stories and experiences of people who have undertaken amazing adventures by bike. Whether it's crossing state borders, mountain ranges, countries or continents, we want to share that spirit of adventuring on two wheels with our listeners. Hi everyone, it's Bella here from the show. Before we get into the interview, I just wanted to take a quick moment to talk about some of the ambient sounds you're going to hear. I was really fortunate to speak to our guests for today's show whilst they were en route to starting their mega challenge. It did mean that they were outdoors, and so throughout some parts of the show, you're going to hear some beautiful natural sounds brought to you from the French Pyrenees. There'll be some crickets chirping and some birds singing. So stick with it. It just adds to the lovely atmosphere, I believe. But I do want to have a little special call out. If I have any fans out there who are bird lovers, if you could let me know after listening to this what those birds actually are, I'd really appreciate it, because I spent quite some time listening to them myself and am a little bit curious. Okay, without further ado, let's get into this show. Hello, I'm your host Bella Malloy, and I'm very excited to introduce my guest for today's episode of the Seek Travel Ride podcast, Max Schnell. Max has an adventure cycling CV which would rival many, including cycling the route of all three cycling Grand Tours, the Giro d'Italia, Tour de France and Vuelta a España in 2021, back-to-back and self-supported. Now Max is about to start a new adventure, the Deux Mille challenge. This involves cycling every single paved road in the Pyrenees and Alps, which goes up over 2,000 metres in elevation. That's 200 cols and will amount to a distance of 10,072 kilometres with an elevation gain of 271,250 metres. Oh my goodness, Max, my knees are creaking just thinking about this. Welcome to the show. What a challenge you've set yourself. I'm excited to learn more about it now.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Yeah, you don't have to see the numbers like this, because I don't watch them like this, because if you start from scratch and look at the final result, you I guess you will never make it. But yeah, they are pretty crazy. I mean, I dreamt of it all winter long, so I think just day by day trying to enjoy, and then the stats will sum up. And in the end, what counts are not the numbers, but the fact that you enjoy on the road, and then the numbers will follow by themselves. It's pretty scary when you say it, and you say it without rounding up them, so it's even worse, you know. I'm just rounding up, and it's easier to say, but yeah.
I imagine, I guess another way to look at it, Max, and I can totally appreciate so many climbs, so many millimeters of elevation, so many kilometers, but it's climb by climb for you on this challenge and enjoying every single mountain pass as it comes. And I guess also descents too, if you're that way in mind, because what goes up definitely goes down here in the mountains as well. But Max, what I like to do with my podcast, and I ask this question of all my guests to start off, is, do you remember the very first bike you ever rode?
No, I think I was able to ride a bike before I was able to have memories. Same with skiing. I don't remember my first time skiing, because I don't have memories like before my 4th years of age, something like this. But so I'm gonna cheat a bit on this question. My first memory on the bike is a memory I think I don't really have it in my mind, but it somehow came into my brain because of video footage I saw with my parents later on. So yeah, I remember it was a small bike with 4 wheels, 2 side wheels. I think it's red. It was red, and it was on the terrace of our house in Milano, because I was born in Milan. in Italy. So this is my first memory on a bike. Cheated memory.
And you were saying there that you feel like you were riding a bike before, you can recall memories. You were at such a young age, and skiing there too. So it sounds like the outdoors has sort of been part of, or a theme for you in your life, naturally just growing up in your childhood.
Yes and no. I would say I've always received an indication from my parents where we had to do sports, but like not a high level, not competing. It was a kind of balance in life they wanted us to have. So we had to pick one sport activity per year and do it once a week or twice a week. So yeah, we were pushed outside, but we were not. I mean, my father is not Mike Horn or something like this. So we were not pushed into adventures outdoors and taking risks and wild camping. But yeah, we were a urban but sporty, outdoor liking family. But like not fanatics like I am now.
Because when you say fanatics like you are now, you are full-time on the road now, aren't you? You travel the world on your bike. You live outside where your bike takes you. That is your day-to-day, isn't it?
It is. It's not a choice I made, a radical choice I made at one point in my life where I said, okay, now I want to throw everything away and quit that life and get nomad. This is not the case. It's more like a transition that I was not even aware a couple of years ago. But at some point in my life when COVID came, I was like, okay, basically you've not had a roof for the past 2 years. So actually you've been living on your bike in your tent for the past 2 years. It was more like taking conscious of that like a fact and not like a revolution I wanted to make in my life. It's not something I aimed for, I strived for. It's something that just at some points you accept the fact that, okay, I've been nomad for 2 years. I loved it. And after COVID, I knew I would get back to this digital nomad lifestyle.
My mind boggles just thinking in that amount of time, just the places that you have gone to and the places that you have seen. Something that has struck me actually, Max, when I have looked through some of your historical posts and your social media accounts, is there's definitely a feeling that you feel, I'm trying to think of the right words for this, probably your soul feels refreshed and enlivened being in the wild, more rugged places, far away from commercialized areas. I think I read a post where you had climbed one of the climbs up around Andorra, and your comment on that was, what a horrible climb this was. It's so commercial. It's like a dual lane highway. There's fuel service stations, shops and everything. Yeah. Whereas opposed to other posts where you are in the rugged sort of pristine scenery. So I'm guessing that type of environment is one that you yearn for more?
Yes, and it brings you something really peaceful because somehow you live, like the clock is not ticking. It's kind of, when I want to visit someone, I just calculate the distance. I divide it into 150 kilometers, which is a distance I like to do per day. And I tell that person, I can be there in 7 days. So let's meet just in 7 or 8 days. I'll be there. If you want to meet me, get yourself ready and keep your business stuff away, and I'll be there in 7 days. While if you don't live on a bike, just with planes and trains, you can transfer yourself so quickly. It's such a rush. And I don't know, we hear a lot like just live slowly, but no one does it. And I think transportation is the first things to start with, not only smartphone use and everything that is hectic, but like just transport. And that's something in the beginning a bit hard to accept. You want to be at some place at the birthday of someone or on an event, but you're just geographically too far away to make it on time. So either you change your plans or you just accept not to be there, or you cycle longer. And that's kind of more, I don't know, honest or authentic way of dealing with our planet and our geography. And I definitely like it because you forget time, you're lucky I picked up on the phone, but because sometimes I just forget meetings, it's like, and it's not, I'm organized, so it doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes I'm just remote in the mountain and I tell my contact, well, I try to make it. If I don't make it, just do something else, but because I'm not going to change my whole geographical plan just for meetings or for events I want to be at. So yeah, that's accepting a little bit of a,
like a compromise.
Yeah, your human condition, and not being motorized and not being always capable of doing things so fast, because when you can, you do. When you can't, you just deal other way.
There's something there in what you've just said, Max, which really resonates with me. So I've been on this side of the world for 3.5 years. I live full time now in the Pyrenees, having moved from Australia, and it's actually been 3.5 years since I have owned a car. It's been 3.5 years since I've driven anywhere. I am a full-time cycle commuter. If I need to go to the shops to get something, it's with my bike. If I want to travel somewhere, it's with my bike. If I want to travel long distances and I think that my bike's not going to get, it's going to be with my bike to the train station, on a train, and then with my bike again as well. And there is something there that resonates in that it becomes something that it's a conscious decision made, but it takes the first bit of time, takes an adjustment to this is how your life is. But once you've actually made that habitual change, you realise this is what your life is like now. And you do appreciate those moments in the moment and the perspective of distance as well, and what is in between me and the next town, or a town 100 kilometres away, and what I actually visually experience and see and smell and hear because I'm out there feeling that distance, as opposed to getting into my car in the nice comforts of heated or air-conditioned comfort to zoom away somewhere quite quickly as well.
Yeah, and also it takes a long time for you to accept it and to deal with it. It takes even longer for others to accept that you are like this. It's really hard.
1,000,000%. 1,000,000%.
Yeah, because you're the bastard that doesn't join family meetings or whatever, and you're like, yeah, but it's a choice of my life. You accept me that way or you don't. But yeah, one thing is to accept it yourself. The other thing is, yeah, that other people around you, especially those one you love, just accept it, that you move differently, you live with a different timeline, and what is 2 hours for them will be 2 days for you. And yeah, it takes a long time for them to just get used to it.
And I know at the start of the show when I was listing off the stats of the Deux Mille challenge and what it will actually involve, and you said quite rightly, you're not thinking of the stats as one big thing because it can feel overwhelming. But do you ever reflect back on each year, and actually do you keep stats of how far you cycled each year and what you've done? Do you ever reflect back on that? Or is it totally that's just part of the lifestyle that you lead and it is what it will be?
No, I appreciate stats. I'm definitely data driven, so no scientifically. So I don't care about heart rate. I don't care about watts. It would be too complicated to introduce this in my lifestyle. But definitely elevation gain stats, distance stats, be it like monthly or yearly. I'm quite statistic driven, I have to admit, and I spend a lot of time also just explaining to people what those stats means, because basically I ride more than most people drive their car every year. And it's also, Strava is a kind of, for me, like a job tool, because I help brands in testing their products. So Strava, for example, for me is definitely a kind of blog where I can keep noted which bike or which component of which bike has made how many kilometers before it broke. And so yeah, I'm quite statistic oriented. I also like to see how much I rode or climbed in the past 5-6 years, and just show people like how much you can do with a simple object that is a bike.
It sort of goes to the heart of you are putting things through their paces, so to speak. Like you are doing proper gear tests and reviews. It's not that you're, wearing a jacket for 3 climbs in a row on a rainy weekend. You're or riding a bike for a month. Like you are really testing things out here. I'm curious, and I don't want this to be the whole focus of the show, but I am curious, for example, for last year. Do you know how far you rode last year?
Yeah, last year was, I don't have the exact number, but it was around 40,000 kilometers. 40,000
wow.
Kilometers, yeah. Do you count in miles?
I'm Australian. I definitely understand kilometres. I think if it was in miles, would that be about
25?
25 miles?
Yeah.
25,000 miles.
Yeah, something like this.
Wow, that is mega. And I guess, Max, when I was thinking about the things that you have done, and you've done some impressive stuff as well, before COVID came around, you were actually cycling your way from Alaska to Ushuaia in Argentina, weren't you?
Yeah.
Was this your first sort of cycle tour?
No, it was the first time I decided to take a year for a tour. But no, I did actually many tours before that were a bit shorter. including a 6-month tour. So it's not that short. For many people, it's a lot. But it's the first tour I did for a whole year. Yeah, and with a more or less fixed route. I knew I wanted to cross the Rockies and the Andes and not the Panamericana.
Yeah, which is the typical trail, I guess, really, isn't it? That people would normally take for that tour.
Yeah.
How far into that were you? Because am I correct to think that COVID disrupted that route?
Yeah, I got stopped at the border between Chile and Argentina. And they just asked me to choose one of both countries because they would close the border. So I had to choose to stay in one or the other. So I chose Chile. And I did in that year, I did 30,000 kilometers. And I think I missed, there were 10,000 more to get to the southern tip of Chile. So yeah, let's say 3/4 were done. Could have been way shorter because I think the shortest route from Alaska to Ushuaia is around 25,000 kilometers, but I was more counting the mountains I would miss if I would go straight.
That's a theme that's already come up just so early on, just listening to you there, Max, is that you are motivated by being immersed in your surroundings, being in the moment, experiencing the place that you're in, but I also guess with a sense of intrigue of thinking, oh, I wonder what is around there. Oh, I'd like to go down that road and see that mountain or see this, get off the typical tourist trail, so to speak.
Yeah, and that's why I also navigate only with a phone and not with a Garmin or a GPS, because if I want to change, if I see a cloud on my right side, I'll just reroute my route and go to the left side and explore there. If I see a road that is climbing, that looks appealing and that I didn't see on the map, I just can change it while I'm riding. So I think saying this, that even though I'm riding 40,000 a year, even though I've been riding for 6 years, I'm still using a damn smartphone to navigate, which is not the best tool. Shows how much I do it just because I love to know what's behind the corner I see right now, and not because I want to go from A to B in the shortest possible way, which is not at all my philosophy.
And to be honest with you, A to B in the shortest possible way is often not the most scenic way, regardless. Although in the mountains, I will backtrack, in the mountains, often the shortest route to the top is actually the steepest route as well, so potentially the most scenic.
Yeah, depends on the continent and maybe on the load you have on the bike, but I agree with that. Most of the time the shortest ways is not the most beautiful at all.
No, exactly. What sticks out there if I was to ask you for a specific memory there in Chile when post-COVID, so you've chosen the country of Chile to be in, I feel asking people often these type of questions can sometimes be impossible because, there are so memories, but is there something that vividly sticks out in your mind?
Actually, I just entered Chile, so I spent 10 days in Chile, and even though I loved the north of Chile, the thing that touched me the most and the thing I remember first when I'm asked is my transition I did from the Atacama Desert to Santiago, and there I was basically all hotels were shut down. So I went to the French embassy and it took them just 2 minutes to call someone that would be keen on hosting me until I find a plane. So this, this help from that family, basically from that woman, from the mother of the family, was so genuine, and I was okay, we're living something, the world is going through something we have no idea what's about, because it just started, so no one could know what consequences this would have, and they just accepted to host me they didn't know how long. That's the craziest thing. Could have been 2 days and could have been 2 months. So yeah, that's a big feeling and a big memory. And another memory that is less happy is, unfortunately, I had to cross, this Atacama Desert a bit earlier. And basically I had 200-kilometer stretch through the desert. And yeah, I took 13 liters of water, thinking it would be enough for 200 kilometers. And basically after 2.5 hours, I was out of water, which had never happened to me and did never happen ever again. And so basically in a salt desert, there's no vegetation, but the air gets really, really dry because it's full of salt. The salt is basically melting with the sun because it's so hot. And so the air I was breathing was really, my nose got really, really dry. And then, of course, my throat got really dry. And, well, I had no water. So I found a sign, a road sign that was like actually huge, maybe 2 meters by 1. So I could at least use the shade of that sign. And I tried to hitchhike because it's a minery road, salt mine, of course. And that the buses, the trucks, they stopped. But they told me I should not wait there because of COVID. They were not allowed to take anyone on board. So I was really, really stuck until one guy stopped, gave me the water he had in the truck, and then he said, look, I cannot take you. There are cameras in our trucks, so basically if I take you on board, I'm fired and I have to go back to my country, which is Venezuela. At that time, Venezuela was in civil war. So of course he wouldn't take the risk, but he said, I'm a cyclist, so I know what it is to draft. So I'm going to drive 35 kilometers an hour, and so you will have no pedaling. Just stay behind my truck, and this way I basically bring you back to the next village. And this is what we did, and I'm not proud of this, but he saved me, I guess, because I don't know, it would have been impossible to ride 120 kilometers more without a single drop of water.
What an absolute legend. I can't fathom being in that situation myself, where you've run out of water, you're in the salt desert, and as you said, you've only just started out through to the desert and ended up in this situation quite quickly. It's a resounding theme, Max. I've had the privilege of being able to interview some incredible people who've had amazing experiences on a bike, and the resounding theme overwhelmingly, which comes in with each of my guests, are these tales of the kindness of strangers and people helping out in situations.
Yeah.
Situations where things seem dire, that luck has run out for you, and there has always been somebody who doesn't know you, who doesn't owe us any kindness whatsoever, but wants to do good for you and see you on your way. And that's what I'm getting from this story as well.
Yeah, people are amazing. And I think we live in a world where at least endurance cycling is emphasizing a lot on self-supported and stuff. And I think it's a bit of bullshit, and we should do the opposite. You will never be self-supported in this world because water is a big issue, food is a big issue, climate change is a big issue, and you will never solve those things alone. And I think it's the same when you travel, when you accept to get help from people. I think this is where you accept actually human condition, you're just a human, and we are a chain, and you need the part that is on the left and on the right of you to make a chain. Once you accept this, you open so many gates and so much potential to your travels and to your experiences.
It's so true, and it's part of allowing yourself to be in a vulnerable situation as well. If you had to risk assess and have to be concerned about fear of what if this happens, what if that happens, well, you would never do anything, you would never set off. But being able to accept the kindness of strangers, and it's very true, you are correct, in the ultra-distance cycling world, it is almost taboo, isn't it? The self-supported mantra is first and foremost. You need to fix it your own way. You need to be the person that gets out of that situation.
Yeah, you cannot lend money to your rival, which is absurd.
Yeah, I think, was it last year's edition of the Transcontinental? I think there was a big furor about the people who were coming first and second, and somebody bought the other person an ice cream, and whether that was actually them not being self-supported anymore. It's just like, it's just an ice cream. But
it's also like, where does self-supported start and where does it end? Because in that way, we guys that travel and compete being sponsored, then we are less self-supported than people that buy their bikes, right? So where do you draw a line, So I don't have the answers. I just ask the questions. But what is self-supported? I mean, even if you travel on your own and buy all your gear, who built the gear? You always depend on the work that other people did in everything you do, except if you live alone on your farm without electricity and whatever. But and I think that's a beautiful thing to just accept that and embrace it somehow.
And especially, I guess, moving away from, the ultra cycling sports side of the world to that traveling side of the world brings it back down to the essence of why we travel a lot of times in the first place. And if I think of it myself, my motivations, it's to see new places, to witness new cultures, to have those interactions with strangers and people. And if I reflect back on my most memorable personal moments on a cycle tour, often a stranger that never existed in my mind or my life is someone that I will think of fondly because it will spark a memory of that human interaction as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Max, that trip then in South America ended abruptly with COVID. You obviously managed to make your way back to Europe post the pandemic.
During the pandemic.
That sounds like it would have been an adventure in and of itself, no doubt.
Yeah, it was, but I was lucky that, well, I'm French citizen, so there were some help to get back. And also I could go back to being a bike messenger in Paris. And as soon as I got this information and decided to leave Chile and get back to Paris and be useful in Paris as a delivery boy. So actually the decision was made quite fast as soon as I knew this, and then I got lucky. I just took a plane the next day and zip, I was back in France, which I didn't plan at all a couple of hours ago, because I thought I would be in Chile like for 3 months at least.
I imagine it's sort of going from one extreme to the other as well, and in a pandemic type environment. So, and Paris, I imagine at that stage would have felt quite bizarre as well.
Bizarre, but amazing, because having Paris just for yourself, it was like in France, the lockdown was strict, really strict. People were not allowed to go out without a paper that would allow them. So really, we were very little people on the roads, and it was actually gorgeous. Don't like to say that because most of the population just suffered of this, but for me it was a really nice memory.
100% I can understand that as well. And it's a different type of Paris too. It's interesting, since the pandemic, a lot of work has been done in the city of Paris to make it a more cycling infrastructure, more cycling friendly, more people on bikes through the city, less cars and stuff. But I imagine during the pandemic and being in Paris then, where there truly is less people getting around motorised as well, it would have been a very different environment too.
Yeah. And also people you were delivering to were really happy to see you. They were to see someone, and then they were really thankful for the job we did. And it's a totally different relationship than the usual bike messaging where you deliver pizza to someone that just want to eat a pizza and just, opens the door, takes the pizza, that's it. Very different and way more rewarding.
Because people are craving some sort of human interaction there as well.
Yeah.
I want to then skip back to quickly 2021, 3 grand tours in a year, self-supported. What gave you the idea for a challenge like that?
Random. I was throwback to 2020. I met my girlfriend in Sicily, southern Italy, and then just totally randomly we figured out that the Giro started in Palermo the day after she would leave. And I had planned to head back to northern Italy, of course cycling from Sicily to northern Italy. And when I googled what route the Giro was taking, basically every stage was going from south to north until reaching Milano. So I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm just gonna follow them, so I don't have to do my own map. I just follow the stages and try to watch them pass every day, cheer them on, and then hop on my bike again. And basically, after 2 days of trying this, I got dropped. They were like 400 kilometers away, and I was like, okay, now I have to ride all night to catch them. But then tomorrow's stage is 160, so I have to ride all night, ride the 160 they do, and then there's another transition that I will have to do by night. And that's where I was like, okay, now I'm aware that's a real challenge. That's cool. And then I was, okay, 2021, I'm doing this, but with the 3 Grand Tours. So that's how the idea came up. And then I waited until, I don't remember when they officially present the routes. But yeah, I waited basically half of the winter until the Giro, the Vuelta, and the Tour de France would publish their roads. And then I started drawing the stages, and then drawing also the transitions and the transfers between every stage. So yeah, the idea came out of nowhere. Just trying to do something, thinking it was easy, and then like totally naive, and then figuring out, okay, that's hell of a challenge to stay ahead of the peloton, because also if you get caught by them, you're blocked for, depending on where it is, but sometimes they block you for 5-6 hours. So then it's 5-6 hours where you cannot progress, and they catch you, and then yeah, so a hell of an organization, which I found really interesting in that challenge.
Far out. So I am a fan of cycling, and I have, as an Australian, I've spent many years staying up at ridiculous hours in the night watching these Grand Tours on my TV screen. To be honest with you, more for a lot of and it's the mountain stages which get me motivated, because I get to see the scenery of places that I would want to ride my bike to. I imagine with these routes then, you would have had a phenomenal mix of places that these routes take you to, because as you said, you're not just riding the stage, but you are riding the transition from where a stage stops to where it will start the next day as well. So I imagine you're taking on some quite challenging routes, both from the idea that you are times not in the most scenic areas, and then all of a sudden you're in these spectacular mountain vistas at times as well. You would have also, I am imagining, Max, over the period of time for these routes, have to deal with some extremes in weather, no doubt, too.
Yeah, basically, just as this spring is bad, the spring 2021 was horrible in Italy. At least it was not cold, but it was rainy, and I think so out of the 23 days I rode, I think there were 20 or 21 just like rain. And like not 1 hour rain, more like 5-6 hours rain. So yeah, basically what you said, that I follow the mountain stages too. And the other one, I see a quick highlight. But they are insanely boring to ride. And this started at the Giro, where I was already, damn, that's gonna be long when you ride I remember one day, it looks crazy on Strava, it's a straight line and it's 300 kilometers, where the line is almost straight, and it has, I don't remember, maybe 600 meters of elevation, which has basically only bridges.
Oh, that's hell for me.
Yeah, that's really hell, especially because at least they do it without traffic, but you do it with traffic, and those are actually big roads where there's a lot of traffic to commute, and also trucks that go from one city to another. So yeah, in the Giro it was okay, because I was still motivated of, well, is it possible to achieve? I was really focused on the physical challenge and the feasibility of the project. But when the same situation came in Spain, so I had done the Giro, I had succeeded the Tour de France, I was succeeded the first week of the Vuelta, which was the hardest. And then I was on this 2x2 lane road, and I was like, what the heck are you doing here? You know, it's just like, it's like horrible. Maybe it's okay-ish to ride this when you have the entire organization caring about your safety, but what I'm doing now is really not beautiful and not safe. And yeah, in the Giro I didn't suffer that much from it. I also choose to ride a lot during the night, because then it just, you know, it gives you another point of view on the things, and it gives variety. But in Spain I was really, I was like, what for are you doing this? And struggling a lot more.
And if I think of the Vuelta as well, you know, it's later in the year where you're in Spain, and so the temperatures, I imagine you would have been dealing with temperatures which were roasting hot as well, not the best for cycling either.
Yeah, and especially that year, because of COVID, they had changed the date, so it was in August. So yeah, it was really hot, but I have to admit that I'm dealing pretty okay with the heat. So of course it makes you a little bit aggressive, you know, heat makes you aggressive. So didn't have the time of my life, but it was okay. I could deal the heat. The worst problem was just I didn't enjoy the roads. I didn't enjoy the traffic. And once you've proved, at least to yourself, that you're capable of, then there's one milestone of your motivation that just fades. And then there's, why I'm doing this. If I don't enjoy my day, and to me it's already a success, why am I suffering like this here?
I guess this is where the Deux Mille challenge potentially will differ for you then, because the majority of your time will be spent, a lot of it will be spent climbing mountains.
Yeah, I love your question. You're the first media and podcast that asks this question, that Deux Mille might be, I don't know. I don't know if in terms of statistics it's harder than the 3 Grand Tours, perhaps. Let's say it's harder. But to me, it looks so much easier mentally, because most of the roads, of course, there are some passes that are tough in terms of traffic, but most roads are really quiet, and most roads are actually roads I would do out of a challenge just for myself. And I think actually when you start a project or race or whatever that lasts more than, let's say, 2 weeks, for me is where we really enter in ultra disciplines. Whether the body is not the main issue anymore. The thing you have to care about is your mental health and your motivation. If you lose the motivation, even one climb, one easy climb will just bring boredom, no lust to do it, and that's not the point. So I hope, yes, that maybe in terms of statistics, Deux Mille looks way harder than the 3 Grand Tours. It's actually just half of the challenge, half of the duration. But I think just because of that argument, it's so much interesting to me than following the tours, that I really, fingers crossed, I really hope the motivation will be high until the last day. Of course, you cannot expect every day to be willing to ride, but the most important thing is that the purpose you have behind the head is still there, and as long as you have it, you will ride, I'm sure, even if you have physical ups and downs and irritations or whatever. What you have to keep is your mindset. And this is really important on the long-term project. And I think even entrepreneurs can refer to that. There might be days where you don't get any deal with any consumer or any other company. But still, if you're motivated, then it's going to be at the end a good day. And there are days maybe you will achieve great successes. But if you're just not in the mood, then it will leave you totally blank without any emotions. And in the end, we ride to have emotions. At least I ride to have emotions. And I think if you're not motivated, you cannot feel any emotion as strong as when you are motivated. So I think it's the thing you should cherish the most is your motivation, your lust, your passion, basically.
I feel like with the Deux Mille Challenge, there are things that are going to be an absolute given. You can't embark on something that's physically this hard without there being some form of physical discomfort for you along the way. But I guess, as you say, if the mental motivation is there and the mountains will be providing, I feel around these small mountain roads, and I feel you have 200 mountains with the potential to give you these magical moments as well. And yeah, there will be some climbs which are much more scenic than others, but one thing that is a given is, and it's actually a quote that you have from your website as well, it is, the highest mountains are the greatest places for freedom, drama, reflection, and learning. 2,000 meters is very high for a paved road to go to. And in that scenery, it's just magic around you. It's a wonderland often.
Yeah, it's very high in Europe. Other continents would love of it. And it's very funny because when, for example, when I'm on a trip and I was in Mexico this winter, I don't know how many climbs above 3,000 I did. I did maybe a dozen above 4,000. And the same people that just push me when I'm in Europe and encourage me and are like, wow, you did 3 climbs above 2,000 today. That's crazy. And yeah, we tend to forget that like in Mexico, being at 2,000, it's being low. so yeah.
It's all relative.
Always relative. But yeah, in Europe, it's very high. Also now, we had already some messages where I asked you about the snow and stuff. And it's crazy that here I am worried end of May about coming into snow at 2,000 meters, while in Mexico at 2,000 meters they never have snow. They don't even know what it is. So yeah, everything is relative. So.
And I guess the mountain weather is probably a bit of the unknown for you in what will plan out over the next few months. What will this weather bring? Because it's one thing that I have learnt from living in this environment is that from 1 hour to the next, things can change. A forecast can typically tell you what may be in store, but the mountains change dramatically as the elevation goes up here as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest unknown indeed. Then, luckily, in my opinion, in summer it's quite easy to predict. Not to predict the weather forecast, but at least to see the sky, because most of the rain comes from thunders, and thunders, they don't just appear in 10 minutes, you can see them coming 40 minutes before, 1 hour before. And also normally, especially now in June, I really hope that's the case, there's a kind of routine setting in that, like in the morning it's beautiful, so you can ride a lot in the morning, and then in the afternoon it's gonna be very local, like very tough but very local thunders. And then this is where your experience, in that case, my experience of 6 years trying to avoid rain, comes into play, like, okay, should I try to pass this climb and rush down before the thunder, or should I just rather make a break here or even stop already for the night? But at least if I have this certainty that the morning is clear, that would be cool. I really hope it's going to be like this. The past few days I've already been here near to the Pyrenees in Po, observing a little bit how the days go. Yeah, it looks like a classic month of June with a lot of rain, but most of the time the rain is late afternoon.
Can I ask, Max, how did this challenge come to life then? Deux Mille, 2000, that's how we say 2000 in French. The challenge of climbing the paved roads above 2,000 metres in Europe. How did that come to mind? And did you know how big it was when you first thought it up as well?
Last summer, I spent 3 months touring in the Balkan, so Eastern Europe, with my girlfriend. And so sometimes we split because I'm a kind of hyperactive, so I need a bit more exercise than she does. And I found a road in Greece, in northern Greece, that led me, I think, to 2,010 meters, something like this. And just the same evening, I was just killing time on Instagram, and I discovered this Instagram account that is called Deux Mille, which you correctly said means 2,000. And they are a kind of, they keep up a list of all Deux Mille roads in Europe. So all roads that are going above 2,000 meters. So I looked at the map, and I didn't see any road in Greece. And so I reached out to them, and most of the time, they don't really answer when you text those accounts.
Yeah.
But I'd still told them, yeah, look, there's this road. I rode it today. It's above 2,000 guaranteed. And they replied just in the same hour. And then they added it to the list. And then I looked at the list, like we said in the beginning, and I was like, I'm 100% sure that I did at least half of all paved roads on the list. And then then I counted and I synchronized my Strava on their website, and actually I only climbed 40 or something like this, which of course is a lot for most people, but
I was going to say only, it's still a lot.
Yeah, no, it's a lot, but I thought it's 1/3 of the amount they had on the website at that time. And so I texted them and say, damn, I thought I had a lot more. I had conquered a lot more. I'm a bit disappointed. Then we started just chatting, two passionate people chatting, and I was like, okay, that's crazy. The dude that has the most has like 90 or something like this. I was like, okay. They told me their dream would be him to get the 100. And I say, come on, 100 in a lifetime, that's too easy. We have to make it in a summer, in one season. Yeah, and then they offered to come with me with a car. And I said, a car, what for? Well, yeah, to bring you from one call to the next. And I was like, no, damn, that's not the way I cycle. I cycle with my luggage, with my tent. And so this is how we created a bit the challenge. And then the idea in the beginning was to just tackle all climbs in Europe, which includes, of course, all Pyrenees and Alps, which I will climb, but also the Apennines, which is in central Italy. They have 2 climbs. Then the Eastern Carpathians and Balkans, I think they have 5 climbs. And then southern Spain, they have maybe 5 or 6 climbs above 2,000. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this, because this adds 10,000 kilometers to do 15 climbs, which I already have climbed. So I was like, no, this is where you can understand how I planned this on the mental side. I was like, no, going for 10,000 trip is like kind of short term, 2.5 months. If now we have to plan 20,000 kilometers, this is going to last 5 months. And mentally, I'm never going to be motivated to ride hardcore for 5 months in a row. So even before I actually accepted the challenge, I told them, no, I have to be sure that I will be motivated throughout the whole process. And if we do 20,000 kilometers, I know, because of the 3 gun tours, I know that I cannot keep up the motivation. So yeah, this is how we created the challenge. And then your second question was if I knew how big this is gonna be. Maybe I trusted Deux Mille, which is that community, a little bit too early, because they had 160 roads. You take away those I mentioned, so there were basically 140 climbs that I had to do. And I was like, okay, that's doable. But the point is then, if I do something, I want to do it as right as possible. So I don't pretend to have all climbs 100% on my list, but at least I made the biggest effort I could throughout the entire winter to have them all on the list. And this is where we got into trouble, because in the end it's not 140 paved road, but we ended up with a 200, which is basically 30% more than we thought.
If I also think, Max, when you were originally discovering these mountains and these roads, and you were thinking, oh, surely I've done most of them, and you come back with the stats and you see that you've done 40. I mean, these extra climbs, 60, that's 20 more than the current amount that you've already done as well.
I never saw it this way, but you're right. Yeah.
Perspective.
Yeah, you're right. I think when you're the subject of something, you try not to play too much with numbers, because then they drive you nuts.
So then 200 climbs, I imagine then you have spent quite a lot of time devising the how in terms of what the route's going to look like and how you'll make it possible. You've set yourself a target of doing it in between 2 and 3 months, haven't you?
Yeah, it's not a must. If I need more time, I'll need more time. It's definitely doable in way less time, even myself, but I don't see it like a race. I want to enjoy also. If there are weaker people that want to climb with me, I want to enjoy the time with them, riding a slower pace. I want to give the opportunity for, like, having myself a huge challenge, to give the opportunity to people to have smaller challenge within my challenge. And so that's something I really wanted to keep in my project that makes sense to me, and that's why I don't set a limit. So I have other plans starting mid-August, and I will try to make it until mid-August. Now, if I don't make it because of X and Y reasons, well, I'm not gonna make it, and plans I have afterwards are already aware that I might cancel.
This is your project and this is the way that you want to do it. You don't want to do it as in, I have 200 climbs and I need to take the shortest amount possible of time to do it the fastest way.
Yeah, no.
You're looking at 200 climbs with maximum experience involved in that as well.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not easy. If I do it in 2.5 months, it's still, I guess for most serious cyclists, it would be already really, really fast. But I mean, I'm not pretending doing anything like a record or stuff, because I think I could do it in 50 days, which means that the best athletes could do it in 40 or whatever. So if I can do it fast, I'll do it fast. But it's just a bonus. I don't care at all. Actually, I'm almost more proud of the idea and just doing the challenge than doing it fast.
It's something actually, and to my listeners, before I pressed record with Max and we were talking at the start of the podcast, I had mentioned, because Max, you are doing this with your bike decked out in bikepacking bags. You're carrying your luggage with you and it will be on a loaded bike. And I had quipped that I feel like doing climbs with a loaded bike, it's almost like you've done the climb twice. Something you had said to me in response to that was that you have better experiences riding a climb with your bike loaded than if you are not loaded. Do you want to go into that a little bit for me, please?
Well, I'm still as I am data driven, I'm also deep inside of me, I like performance, I like competition. When I see a cyclist in front of me, I tend to pace a little bit just to catch him. So this is a fact. I cannot change my deep self. So that's something I have in me. And the good thing about not riding a light bike, meaning having 20 kilos extra, automatically kicks you out of competition, because if you're faster than the others, then you're just really faster. And when you're slower, you kind of always have the excuse, okay, I'm slower, but we're not doing the same sport. Which is actually, it's a way for me also to protect myself from going really, really sick into competition. Yeah, but Then, of course, when I ride a loaded bike, I have no incentive in riding in fast, because even if I push hard, my time will be really slow compared to what I'm personally capable of, and will be really slow to what potential competitors would be capable of. So basically, what's the purpose of pushing hard if even if I push as hard as I can, my time will still be really basically average. So then I just take my time, and I'd really enjoy the climb. I stop to take pictures. I film myself trying to bring also my followers a little bit with me in the adventure. And that's why what I say exactly, it's not that I enjoy it more, but basically that's true. But I remember better the climbs that I did fully load than the climbs I did not loaded at all, because when I'm not loaded, then the tiger in me gets out again and says, okay, push, and when you push, basically what you're looking at, it's just the next switchback, or you're looking down at your handlebars or whatever. So yeah, definitely I remember all the roads I did with luggage. I don't remember all the roads I do without luggage. So
I love every bit of that, because there's part of me that I can feel in your thought process there. And it's been my experience riding the mountains here as well. And it's taken a few years for me to snap out of that mindset and actually say, you know what, I don't care about my time up this climb. There is a beautiful light that is reflecting across the mountainside, across the valley, and I want to stop and look at that or take a photo, or wow, is that a marmot that I saw running off in the distance? And you take consideration in moments. It's putting yourself in a different mindset where you are within the mountains, experiencing the mountains, as opposed to experiencing the challenge of getting from the bottom to the top without stopping as fast as you can. It's not to say one is more important than the other, or wrong, or one is right, but it is a very, very different experience. I fully appreciate it.
Totally.
I guess to that point, currently contemplating doing the Raid Pyrenees, but with my loaded bike as well. And I have ridden these mountain passes unloaded, and I often sort of think it's going to be such a different experience.
It will.
But I'm going to take your mantra there of I will be experiencing it so much more and so much differently as well. So I'm excited now as opposed to potentially a little bit scared.
Yeah, and also one thing that changes when you have a loaded bike, especially, I don't want to make any statement here, but especially with men cycling, is that you can have a conversation. While when you are without luggage, there's no conversation. There's just one trying to stick in the back wheel of the other. Of course, not every man does that, but there is a kind of a manhood relationship when there are two men on the bike. And when you're bikepacking, well, you get help from those same people, They take the time, they slow down, they take the time to talk with you. And then most of them would also offer you just to, roll until you split behind them and just help you to get further easier. And that's also beautiful. That's what I like. It just, it just sets a different relationship towards people.
It's so true. And just listening to that, again, it sparked off memories for me. I remember the time that I was fortunate enough to be in Italy in the Alps, and I climbed the Stelvio Pass. And I remember it for many reasons. One, because it was pouring with rain and it was a bit miserable, but it was still probably one of the happiest moments on a bike for me. But I always remember coming up, I think it was about 3 kilometres from the top in abysmal weather, but there was a person with panniers riding up the climb, and I was just like, how is this possible? I remember speaking to them, and I still remember the conversation that I had with them. And last year, the same, I was riding up towards the Col d'Aubisque here in the Pyrenees, and there was a French lady, Louisa, and she was doing the Raid Pyrenees, and she was on a loaded bike, and I was just so excited that someone was doing this all loaded, and I still vividly remember those experiences. So you are correct, there is a sense of cheering people on and feeling so happy and being motivated to see what's possible for them, taking on a challenge as well, as opposed to the probably thousands of people I have seen on a road bike going up and down a mountain. Those are the two people that I remember the most.
Yeah.
So let's get into a little bit then of, we're not looking at the whole challenge and whole statistics and numbers, but I imagine you mentioned that you have done some of these climbs before. Are there any climbs in particular that you've done before that perhaps, are you looking forward to the ones you've done before to revisit some again, or are you more keen with a mind to ones that you have never done before to experience what they're like?
No, I'm definitely more interested in those I didn't tackle yet, especially also in the regions where I didn't explore much. For example, Austria, because most of the time, even in France, there are many dead-end roads that I didn't climb, but I climbed a big pass just nearby. So of course, I know the area, I know the scenery, I know the valley that from where you start. So it's not gonna change a lot. But the one I'm looking forward to the most are the ones where I have not cycled a lot in the surroundings. So of course, yeah, Austria, many Swiss climbs also, because I tend to pass quite quickly in Switzerland. But there are some that I already know, and I already know really well that still, yeah, make me dream. Like, of course, the Galibier. It will be my last climb for the challenge, and it's actually the very first high alpine climb I did in my life. So it was a trip I made from Paris to Briançon because I had 5 days of alpinism introduction, and I said, yeah, instead of going with the train, I just go with the bike. And so I passed the Galibier, and I had never climbed a pass before. So that's, for me, it's something really symbolic, to end such a crazy trip with all the experience I have now at the same place where I actually came in a total naive mindset, climbing my very, very first mountain in my life.
I love that the climb you've chosen as the final climb is such a symbolic one for you.
Yeah.
That is awesome. I've been fortunate to have climbed the Galibier, and actually, I must admit, I nearly didn't bother because I climbed it via the approach from the Lotteret, not from Briançon though, from the Lotteret via
Grenoble.
Yeah, and I had totally underestimated this climb. I'd come off a few weeks of riding big mountains. I had not eaten properly, and I remember I was 7 kilometers into the Lotteret climb, and I just felt like empty. There was nothing, and part of the Alps there, it was my memories, there were lots of tunnels, there were lots of trucks, there was exhaust fumes, and I remember getting to the top of the Lotteret thinking, the Galibier is only another 8.5 kilometers, but I'm like dead. Do I really want to go to the top there? And I remember, Max, what got me there was like a vendor, and I still don't know the name of these pastries. I will call them the pastries of life because I went to this vendor and I bought 2 of these most amazing strudel type pastries that one had apple and I think one had like myrtille or blueberries. And I sat there with my husband who was drinking a Coke, and we ate these and we just thought, you know what? When are we going to be here again? Let's do it. I still think so fondly about getting to the top. The last kilometre I think nearly killed me. That's where it's steep. But, I love the Galibier. And when I saw that it was actually going to be the final climb for your challenge, I was thinking ahead, thinking, I need to have a look at my calendar and see if there's any way that I can be there to join you for that climb for the Galibier. I think that would be mega.
You would be more than welcome. It would be amazing.
Which way are you going to do it? Are you doing it from the Lotteret side for the final day, or are you going from the other side?
No, from the Lotteret side.
Oh, well, then we have to go and see if the pastry stall is there. The pastries of life to get us to the top. So, actually, that brings me up to another point here, and that is that, Max, that you are really looking for people to join you on the road there. It's not a solo challenge. You are more than happy to have company on these climbs and have people, whether it be for 1 climb, 2 climbs, a day, 2 days, whatever, but to people to join you. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. It's an individual effort, for sure. No one's gonna pedal instead of me. But I'd love to enjoy, people I know, people I don't know. That's really cool. And also, I know that in the eastern part of the challenge, there will be just a lot of solitude because basically my community is focused on Italy, France, especially France, and then quite of worldwide. But in Austria and Slovenia, my community is not really dense. So I know I will have that solitude that I also appreciate a lot. But then I would like to really put emphasis on the social side of my challenge for the rest of the time where potentially people could join. Yeah.
So if people want to join you on this challenge, what's the best way of them finding out where you are, where you're going to be on what day, and what climbs you're going to be doing?
There are several ways to keep in touch or keep informed. I would say the first one is just my Instagram. This is where I post the most. I will try to be active and to answer, but I try to put everything in place so that people can be independent if they want to join. So that's why there will be a live tracking. So the best for people who, especially for those ones who are used to dot watch races and who are knowing the local geography well, is just to use this live tracking, which will show the route I'm gonna ride and my dot changing, moving every minute, every 2 minutes or something like this. So it's very easy actually to know where I am and to catch me somewhere. Then there will also be the Deux Mille community supporting me with everything about communication, everything concerning live tracking. So there will be the live tracking also on their website, but also I think they would really be more active than I would on Instagram, just for people who maybe find it harder to understand the live tracking tool. Just reach out to them and they will help you to give you a time and a place where you could catch me. And then there's Strava, but Strava will be posted at the end of the day, so if you will have an idea or
see what you've done as opposed to
yeah, exactly. So if you follow me on Strava, you know where I'm sleeping more or less. You can make your calculation of if I'll reach your place the next day and at what time, but I think the best tool to join is the live tracking or the Instagram account.
Fantastic. And for our listeners, I will provide links to Max's Instagram, the Deux Mille community, and the your Strava club, but also your live tracker as well, so that we can all keep tabs on you there too. I definitely have my mind to be able to join you somewhere on the road, Max. I think it would be
super cool.
Such an incredible opportunity. I thoroughly enjoying talking to you about so many things here and so many ways that you've articulated what it's like to be experiencing life on the road has resonated so deeply with me as well. There's a similarity in our train of thought. I'd love to share a few pedal strokes with you as well there. Now, something that I do like to ask occasionally for guests where I feel, Max, in a way, you've done so much and that we skip over so much so quickly. For an episode, often it can be, well, what do you ask? What do you miss out on? But is there something that I should have asked you that I haven't yet?
Yeah, I think you should have asked, not for me, but for most people, how this is economically viable because I've been on the road like six years. So 6 years I think the year where I lived with the least money was when I was in the States, in South America. So I could survive with 6,000 euros a year. So to give an idea, you don't need to work a lot, at least if you're a European, to gather 6,000 euros. Now I think I'm on a basis where I spend 10,000 euros a year, and I'm living pretty well. I mean, I do a lot of restaurants, I eat a lot. I just try to avoid sleeping inside too much because this is actually what's cost. And I try to avoid taking trains because in the end this costs a lot too. I took too many trains those 2 last years, and this is something I wanna change definitely. So basically, to earn 10,000 euros a year is pretty simple. I think you can make your calculation, but with a normal wage, working 10 hours a week is enough. And basically what I'm doing is that winter is really hard, not because of the cold, because the body is amazing and it adapts, and there are several techniques that make it possible to sleep even by minus 10 degrees. But what's hard in winter is just there are 7-8 hours of light. The rest of the time you're stuck in the tent. So I use the winter nights to earn a lot of money, and in the summer I almost don't work. And most of the time I've been working as a translator, which is a job you can do remotely and you can do as a freelancer. So for several startups, translating from French to German or into Spanish also, because I've lived in Spain. In the very beginning, I always came back from my trips and I was bike messaging. So this is how I financed back then. Last year I could count on my sponsors, or I'd rather say on companies for which I was testing gear. I told them, okay, I'm good with providing you 40,000 kilometers a year, but 40,000 kilometers a year represent almost 3,000 hours of riding. So if 3,000 hours of riding is a lot, so there's not much room left for working, and so they supported me financially last year. Yeah, so that's how I finance. But basically, my mindset, like my motto, has been try to cut down your expenses if you can, and then what you can't cut off, try to find a way to finance it. So of course translation has been a big support, but yeah, I love to change also, so I'm happy I was bike delivering in the start, translating afterwards, doing nothing but testing last year. It's a kind of interesting evolution, and also the same way I started this podcast when I said I didn't decide one day to get nomad. It's the same when I started. I didn't bother myself with the question how am I going to finance it. I just said I had a little bit of money aside that provided me with kind of a comfortable state of mind, but I never tried to answer the questions I had or that would come with the time, because if you do that, you never step out of the door. So yeah, basically I just went, and then go with the flow, and once you need it, you get creative and you find solutions. So this is something you learn on the road. Just trust in yourself, trust in intuition, trust in just what life will bring.
Yeah, and you have legitimately found a way that really works for you as well. And I love the idea that, the winter, because you're right, when you camp, it's almost like you're up and down with the sunlight and the sunset. Like, the bird song, wakes you in the morning, and then all of a sudden when it's dark, it's like you are in your tent. What am I doing now? I love the idea that you are using that as the time where you can really focus down on other things and put it into focusing for work and for earning, so that come those days with the longer daylight hours, you're doing exactly what you're doing now, which is out there exploring as well.
Definitely, yeah.
Max, I am so excited about your upcoming challenge, and I'm so delighted to have been able to speak with you. I do have 2 questions which I always finish my show with my guests, and they're very quick and easy questions. I feel I know the answers to both of them, but I will ask them regardless. The first one is, if you have the option of having to cycle up a climb all day or into a constant headwind, which one are you going to be choosing?
What's the answer?
Well, I think you would go up the climb.
Yeah, definitely. I would go up the climb 3 times instead of riding against the wind.
I'm there with you. It's funny, every now and then a guest will say, what happens if it's a climb with a headwind? And then I guess you have to go downhill. Because that would be the ultimate, right? A descent with a tailwind. And the next question I have for you is, if you have the opportunity, or if you're told you will be riding 4 hours on a set day and you can ride 4 hours on your own or 4 hours with other people, what would you prefer?
Oh, I'd say I would pick the one I would regret afterwards.
How do you mean?
Because that's something, I think that's something very human, but you always desire what you don't have. And so I would, for example, say, okay, today I'm in the mood with the riding 4 hours with someone. And then after a couple of hours talking, I would say, damn, would be lovely to just be on my own now. And I think the opposite way is also true. If I'm in the mood to say, no, today I want to ride alone, maybe after a couple of hours, I would say, no, it would be nice to have some company.
Yes, okay. I understand 100% where you're coming from. I think the great thing about your Deux Mille challenge is, as you've said, there's going to be times where you're on your own and times where you're with other people as well.
Yeah.
I hope that both of those scenarios fill you up as well, because I've certainly noticed it with my bike rides. Sometimes those solo rides are exactly what I need to refill my soul and to re-energize myself as well. But conversely, it's also time spent with others on the road fills me in different ways as well.
Yeah.
I hope that when you are having your low moments, that whatever scenario you are in is re-energizing you to keep going and pushing forward to the summit of 200 climbs in the Deux Mille challenge, Max.
Yeah, I thank you. I hope. I hope you've been heard.
Well, Max, I am wishing you tailwinds up the climbs.
Thanks.
Beautiful blue skies, magic vistas, and magic moments for the experiences that await you on the road. I have absolutely enjoyed being able to interview you today. It has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
I thank you, and I would just say thumbs up to you, because I did a couple of podcasts that went well, but I think I never did a podcast where the host was that much aware of what you do, what you've done. At least I felt that you do some research, you prepare yourself, and that's cool, because I think in that short amount of time you can exploit way more things than if you don't, and that's cool. And I think that's it's also kind of, it gives us, I don't know, it's just it's nice to have someone that is deeply interested in the things you did and yourself, and it's really I appreciate it a lot.
Thank you so much, Max. I have to say it's been the real motivator for me. With an interview style podcast, it has to be interviewing people that I would just genuinely love to be sat with and enjoying a meal and listening to their stories. And so I feel it's a sign of respect to the guests that I've invited on the show to understand their stories, so that I can ask the right questions, so that my listeners, who are definitely part of the conversation, have the same experience. So I thank you so much for your kind words, and I wish you just the best of everything for this beautiful challenge of yours as well.
Yeah, I expect you somewhere on the road, right?
Most definitely, 100%. And maybe if things go right as well, for the last day in Galibier, for the pastries of life, I will shout you a pastry of life.
Cool. You'll be invited at the party.
Now, I actually did go out on the road on day one to go and see Max and join him for one of his climbs. I cycled the Col du Tourmalet from the other approach to Max, checked his tracker when I was at the summit, and thought, brilliant, I'm going to be able to see him on the descent, turn around and share some of the road with him. But unbeknownst to me, the bikepacker who I cheerily said a hello to as I descended past was actually Max himself. And it wasn't until a few kilometres later, when I found this out for real, that I realised the opportunity for me to join Max was lost. But the good news is he did have an absolutely mega day one and smashed off some big climbs there already on his way. So as I put the finishing touches on the edit of this podcast, Max has already ticked off 13 of those 200 cols. He has made his way through the Hautes Pyrenees in France. He's currently in Andorra, where the mountains are not just bringing in the challenge of vertical gradients, but also that lovely mountainous, unpredictable weather, and he has hit some pretty severe storms. If you're enjoying listening to the podcast, make sure that you are actually following the show on your podcast player. If you'd also like to follow us there on Instagram, you can do. Just check out the handle at Seek Travel Ride, and we continue to bring you the cycling inspiration with visual photos as well. Until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.